The deeper you go into Second World War archives, the more you start to see a pattern that official histories rarely highlight. Friendly fire wasn't just bad luck or fog of war confusion. Much of it was engineered unintentionally into the gear, equipment, and uniforms soldiers carried every day. What's unsettling is that these incidents didn't just happen to inexperienced units or chaotic fronts. They happened to elite airborne, veteran armored divisions, and hardened infantry, who did everything right, except for trusting equipment that betrayed them. If you've ever wondered how something as simple as a helmet cover, or as heavy as a tank silhouette, could cause catastrophic identification failures, this episode is going to walk you through the overlooked gear that triggered friendly fire again and again. And once you know these cases, you start noticing them across other wars, even modern ones. Let's get straight into the overlooked culprits. The first problem came from camouflage patterns that mimicked enemy silhouettes under stress. The most infamous example came from the early American and British use of improvised netting and burlap strips. Under running movement, especially in low light, these patterns broke up the human outline in ways that resembled German paratroopers, rather than Allied infantry. Even worse, when mud and soot collected on the strips, the tones matched Fallschirmjäger smocks closely enough for split-second misidentification. Combat reports from Normandy and the Hurtgen Forest repeatedly describe Allied riflemen firing on fully friendly patrols whose shadowed outlines matched German kit too closely. One modern takeaway here is simply, camouflage isn't just about blending in, it's about blending in correctly. Hunters and survivalists still run into the same issue when cheap camo patterns mirror local poacher gear. The lesson is to field test camouflage in motion, at night, and in indirect light before trusting it. The second problem came from helmet shapes that looked more similar than soldiers assumed. The American M1 and German Stahlhelm are iconic today, but under combat conditions their silhouettes converged in dangerous ways. Mud caked the M1's brim, pulling its outline downward and making the dome appear steeper. Meanwhile, shrapnel dents on German helmets sometimes flattened the Stahlhelm's flare, making it look rounder. Veterans in Italy, France, and the Philippines left dozens of diaries describing snapping open on shapes that only later revealed themselves as friendly. In modern training circles, the lesson holds: shape recognition is highly unreliable under stress unless reinforced with secondary identifiers. This is something search and rescue teams still emphasize. One identifier is never enough. The third factor was weapon sound signatures that overlapped after damage or field modifications. We treat weapon sounds as unique fingerprints, but in World War II, battlefield conditions blurred the differences. An M1 Garand with a damaged gas port, for example, produced a deeper, almost MG-34-like percussion. Likewise, a German Kar 98K firing deteriorated ammunition cracked with a sharper report that veterans later recalled as near-American. Several Pacific battles include friendly units firing on their own Marines after mistaking damaged M1 carbines for Japanese semi-auto fire. The application for preparedness is straightforward. Never trust auditory identification alone. Modern SEER instructors still teach that gunfire echo patterns change dramatically with humidity, terrain, and nearby structures. The fourth source came from tracer colors that overlapped across multiple armies. We often assume tracer colors were standardized by nation, but honestly, World War II reality was far messier. The British used red, white, and green depending on lot number. The Americans used red and orange. The Soviets used green and, occasionally white. And the Germans, late in the war, used whatever they could scavenge. Mixed stockpiles meant a single-night engagement could include a spectrum of confusion. In several Ardennes after-action reports, American units actually mistook Soviet-made green tracers, supplied via Lend-Lease for aircraft guns, as German fire, and ended up calling artillery on friendly tank destroyers. The principle for modern historians and survivalists is the same. Visual identifiers are only reliable when logistics are stable. Once supply chains get weird, assumptions can kill. The fifth issue was Allied armored silhouettes that mimicked German ones at mid-range. The M10 tank destroyer is notorious for this problem. Its turret shape, long barrel and low profile resembled a Panzer IV or Stoogie III in poor visibility. During the Normandy hedgerow battles, multiple infantry units fired Piats and bazookas at their own M10 simply because the open-top turret wasn't visible from ground angle. Even tanks weren't safe. In late '44, a British Churchill unit recorded firing at enemy armor that turned out to be American Shermans with added side plate racks that distorted their appearance. For modern tacticians, this directly mirrors drone-era identification problems. Shape is the least reliable element under combat stress. The sixth contributor was Allied night vision and signal gear that produced unintended signatures. The German Vampire night fighting system emitted a faint infrared glow visible through certain Allied filtered optics. This didn't help Germans very much, but it created problems for American patrols, who mistook that glow for enemy signal flares reflected off helmets. Meanwhile, British Aldous lamp signals were frequently mistaken for muzzle flashes in Italy's mountain passes. The broader lesson is that early versions of cutting-edge gear almost always create new failure points nobody anticipates. The seventh factor was field-modified gear that erased the only remaining friendly identifier. In the Pacific, Marines routinely stripped insignia, smoothed helmet covers, and shortened straps to prevent enemy grabbing. The unintended consequence was that they also erased the few distinguishing markers that separated them from Japanese infantry in jungle shadow. Several Guadalcanal post-action reviews explicitly mention firefights initiated because Marines looked exactly like the foe at 10 meters. The principle still matters. Whenever modifying gear, ask what identification cues you might be deleting. These overlooked pieces of gear shaped more friendly fire events than most people realize, and they reveal a universal truth across military history. Identification is a layered system, and when each layer has a flaw, even a small one, mistakes compound quickly. That's why studying these cases matters not just for history buffs, but for anyone interested in fieldcraft, preparedness, or the realities of split-second decision-making under pressure. If you want more deep-cut, evidence-backed wartime insights like this, subscribe to Strange History and share this episode with fellow historians. The past still has plenty of buried warnings, and we're here to dig them up.